Hello everyone, this is Donnie with Pvgna.com, and thank you for tuning back in. I know it's been a while since our last video. Real quick, before we get into the actual content of the video, which is going to be on the 7 reasons that you're stuck at your MMR, whatever that may be, I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on what is going on with Pvgna itself. If you've noticed, the content that's being released on the site has slowed down a little bit. We are anticipating the new patch coming out, sometime in the next couple months. And so we aren't doing a ton of new hero guides yet because they're going to be obsolete pretty soon. From what everybody is rumoring, it's going to be a big patch. So the guys that are going to come out between now and the next big patch are going to be focusing on more of the kind of general and theory-based concepts of Dota. Restocker's coming out with some more, top carries to pick between 4K and 5K MMR. We've got some more D2 Bowie content, as well as a few other, theory-based and general videos from Jenkins. So keep an eye out for that, and no fear, there will be more awesome hero guides, and once the new patch drops, we will be covering, redoing all the heroes that we need to redo to make them up to date and make sure that we are on top of that as soon as the patch drops. Also, I just wanted to make sure that you guys checked out our newest version of our Oracle tool. It is free, remember that, and it now has this new awesome history page that allows you to look at your last 20 games played individually and see how you compared to other carries and roamers and mids and that sort of stuff in an individual game-by-game basis. All the content that the stats are tagged with and that are suggested for the various stats has been updated as well. So there's a lot of new stuff going on with Oracle, and I hope you are enjoying using it and that it's helping you gain MMR. And finally, I just want to let you guys know that we are exploring a number of new content creators. We are, again, waiting until the new patch drops to see sort of what our workload is, what heroes we need to have covered, but keep an eye out for the new faces at Pvgna as well. And I think that's about it. So thank you guys for your patience. We're about to get right into this video on the 7 reasons you are stuck at your MMR. Reason number 1, failure to adapt to a bad laning stage. Now I know when the game is going well and you get that good matchup, you feel like you're a 10K MMR player and you just snowball the game, you dominate, you crush, it feels wonderful. But I also know each and every one of you has had a bad laning stage at some point in your Dota career. Maybe your hero matchup is bad, maybe you get ganked a bunch, maybe you don't even get some shared tangos from your supports. It happens to everybody, and that's okay. But the main thing to remember when you have a bad laning stage is that you need to adapt to the current situation. One thing that I see a lot of times in my pub games is that a hero will have a bad laning stage. Let's say you get a mid player who gets charged by Spirit Breaker over and over and needs farm. Let's say it's an Invoker. They need to get that Midas. They need to get their Aghanims. They need to get like 3 items or 4 items before they can really do anything. And with a bad laning stage, it's really hard to actually do that. Now, in these kind of situations, there are some heroes that need a specific item to be core, but there's usually a few paths to get there and a few sort of sub or small items that you can get in the meantime on your way to getting those core items. And one of the things that I see in pubs all the time is that despite having a bad laning stage, despite having 2 or 3 deaths and losing a bunch of gold and losing a bunch of farming time, a lot of people will continue to just go for those massive items, the big items that supposedly make their hero what it is. And the thing about that is that most of these items are that they're timing based. If the hero gets this item by this time, it is incredibly strong. Think about a fast Orchid on Storm, or a fast Orchid on Queen of Pain, or an Armlet on Huskar, or a really fast Radiance on a Spectre. While each one of these expensive items is usually considered necessary for these heroes to function, getting an Orchid at a really good timing versus getting it after heroes on the enemy team have a way to survive the burst has a massively different impact on the game itself. And the second part of this equation is that if you are just going for, let's say, a Radiance on a Spectre, then the entire time that you're trying to collect gold for that radiance, you are very, very vulnerable to dying, and you contribute almost nothing to the team fights and the ability of your team to actually do anything in the game. And that's why greedy itemization can actually make a bad situation worse. The laning stage is not the end of the game, but if you don't adapt and buy items that allow you to have some impact in the game before 30 minutes, then your team will essentially be playing 4 against 5 for the entire game until its inevitable conclusion with a loss. Another way that players fail to adapt to a bad laning stage is that they continue to fight after they have already lost a number of fights and are clearly behind in items and have almost no way of winning these fights 5-on-5. And yet I see people feeling like they need to fight their way back into the game. And while you do need to get kills to come back into most games when you're behind, getting these kills usually should not involve a 5-on-5 engagement if you are behind in items and experience and abilities. The best way to come back into a game by fighting after a bad laning stage is to play a sort of guerrilla warfare style where you can split up the enemy team with split push and then get pickoffs here and there if you have the heroes to do it. Now, this continuous fighting that I see a lot in pubs is probably the fastest way to really lose a game. Oftentimes, if you have a bad laning stage and the enemy team has a couple of greedy cores and you continue to fight into them after they already have a lead, then those greedy cores will quickly hit their critical mass. This may require a little bit of awareness of the game itself, but if you find yourself losing a couple fights in a row, maybe it's time to try something different, change up your tactics, or just don't fight at all for a little bit until you have some key items. And one other way that players often fail to adapt to a bad laning stage, and supports, I'm looking at you, is that your warding patterns and the places that you're trying to control with your wards don't change enough when you're behind. I often see supports still warding fairly aggressively, still placing wards in the same spots that they were placing them at the beginning of the game when they're behind, and these wards don't really do much to actually protect a specific area. If you're behind, you can still find some safely warded farming room if you sort of restrict the area that you're trying to control to allow your team to be more clumped up at all times and respond to ganks better. Obviously, at some point, if you're going to win this game that you're behind in, you will need to fight on the enemy side of the map. But while you're trying to get up your core items and sort of stabilize the game and not just continue to feed 1 or 2 kills at a time until the enemy team bleeds you dry, then the best way to do that is to secure a small farming space that you can actually control and protect. And if you can at some point get an aggressive ward deep into the enemy's jungle, then you can even have one of your more slippery cores farm there as well and take advantage of the enemy team always aggressing onto your side of the map. So that's reason number 1, failure to adapt to a bad laning stage. Reason number 2, you overcompensate for everything. When you start dying a lot, it's really easy to start itemizing defensively only. And this is something that we see a lot in games where a team that's behind just never really seems to have the damage to finish off any of the kills that would have gotten them back into the game. And while you do need to have some survivability when you're behind, you also need to have the ability to actually mount a comeback. So playing a little bit more risky in some of these games as far as your itemization may allow you to actually get some of those return kills that then give you the comeback gold to buy your defensive items as well. And this is a difficult balance to strike. You'll need to buy some defensive items, but you'll also need to buy maybe a few smaller offensive items to allow you to mount this comeback. So know your hero, know what your options are, and that's the best way to not overcompensate with your itemization when you are behind in a game. Another way that players overcompensate all the time when they're behind is that they tend to move in a pack. And while 5-manning is good against, a Slurk with a Shadow Blade that's picking you off left and right, I still see this all the time against teams that don't necessarily have such good pick-off potential. You've got 4 or 5 players just kind of milling around in the mid lane or sitting on Shrine or even in base, not sure what to do. And when they do see that one enemy hero split pushing some tier 2 tower, sometimes you even get 5 TPs to that tower to defend it. And this just allows the enemy team to sort of pull you from one side of the map to the other as a team and just take advantage of nearly the entire space that you can farm on the Dota map, and will quickly give them a massive gold and item advantage, which is almost impossible to come back from. This can be a little bit difficult to deal with because it requires some communication, but if you do see 4 of your teammates kind of doing this little pack movement thing, try and take the opposite side of the map that they're on, unless it looks really dangerous to you. And, make some space, push out the lanes, take advantage of the farm, and only really add that 5th body to the pack when it looks like there's going to be a game-changing fight about to happen. If you're a support, encourage your core to do this. Say that you will sit behind them and then encourage the rest of your team to take the other side of the map from the side that you two are going to go try and farm. Reason number 3, you prioritize the jungle camps over the lane farm. And I'm not just talking about that lane creeps give more experience and gold than jungle camps. The reason that this is actually an issue is that when you push those creeps out, it gives you the ability to take objectives. And in addition to taking objectives, your lane creeps basically act like moving wards in each one of the lanes. They give you vision. They allow you to see where the enemy team is, and they force the enemy team to respond to specific places on the map. So when you just jungle, not only are you getting less golden experience than you would in the lane, you're actually depriving your entire team of the ability to take objectives if you take a good fight, or you need to split push at any point in the game. Think of the jungle as a way to get more farm on your way to somewhere else, but if you push out the lane first and then farm your way back to safety, then the lane will actually have momentum going towards the enemy side of the map, as opposed to just farming the jungle and letting the lanes kind of do whatever until the enemy team pushes them into your base. Reason number 4, if you lose a game on a hero that you often play and are good at, you tend to not pick that hero again the next game. You want to experiment maybe with another hero that you think might be good, or you pick a meta hero that you are told is good, but you might not be comfortable on. Picking the right hero is obviously a very important part of climbing MMR, but picking a hero that you're comfortable on is a massively underrated part of this equation in the draft. And if you pick something that you don't really know the limits of, or you have to actually learn the skills on the fly, or the attack animation or the itemization, there's literally no way that you're going to play this hero to its full potential. And generally when a hero is in the meta, it's the full potential of that hero that is what makes it so good. So if you never really reach the full potential of that meta hero because you're not comfortable on it, then you're basically just playing a weaker hero anyway. So if you want to add a hero to your hero pool, do a little research first. Play it a couple times in unranked, watch one of our guides on it, ask a player who plays the hero how it should be played and what its limits are, and then add it to your ranked hero pool. And if you're not feeling super confident in playing one of your good heroes because you just lost a game on it, then maybe now is a good time to take a little break and come back to Dota in a little bit when you feel confident and have your full hero pool available to you. Reason number 5. If you're on a hero or a role that you don't necessarily play very often, then you tend to be pretty inefficient or potentially even apathetic to the result of the game. Obviously, we all have our own favorite role and our favorite heroes to go with it. And in an ideal world, we would just pick just that role and just those heroes, and every single game of Dota would be paradise. But in the reality of public matchmaking, you're going to have to adapt at some point. Otherwise, you're going to end up in games where you have no supports or zero synergy on your lineup. And those games are just no fun to play for anybody on your team. So when you do find yourself on a hero or in a role that you're not the most comfortable on, be prepared to make some mistakes. And that's okay. Everybody makes them anyway, even on their best heroes. So just do your best, remember to communicate, and maybe play a little bit more conservatively than you would on one of your better heroes. And one of the things that I would really encourage everybody to do is learn the other roles. You don't have to necessarily learn all the heroes in the roles, but just learn the other roles and what their jobs are in the game. And we have a role-specific guide here on Pvgna.com, which I will link either in the description or maybe put a button here on the side. Learning just what the role is supposed to do and what the job of each role in the game is a massive step that I think a lot of players really have never done. You get a lot of players who are forced onto support for a game and they just don't really try very hard because they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. They sit in lane and leech experience and they don't ward and they don't rotate and they just don't really understand the concept of what a support is supposed to do. And this happens for the other roles as well. You know, somebody has to play off lane because they didn't get to carry and they just feed and feed and feed and never make space and, you know, try and farm their items as if they were the carry who is being protected. So again, just doing a little bit of research and doing a little bit of learning can go a long way towards making you a more consistently winning player in public matchmaking. So if you're a carry player who's forced onto the support role for like the 5th or 6th time in your Dota career, nobody is expecting you to be PPD or Crit or Jerex or GH or Kuroki. As long as you actually know your purpose and try to execute that to the best of your ability, there's a very good chance your team will still win this game, even though you might not necessarily be on your best role or hero. Reason number 6. You have no plan for the game, you don't have a backup plan, and you're not willing to listen to anybody else's plans. Every time you queue for a ranked game of Dota, you should have a purpose in mind and you should have a plan of how you want the game to proceed. You should also have some sort of backup plan or another way to proceed with your draft if the laning stage doesn't go as well as you wanted it to and your original plan is no longer applicable. And if you are truly out of ideas and you don't really see a path to victory, you might as well try listening to one of your teammates if they have any ideas. At least that way, your team can potentially have some sort of unified action that might turn out all right. After all, you are playing with other people likely close to your own MMR, and therefore their ideas about the game and what they think should happen next is probably not that different than your own. And the 7th reason that you might be stuck at your current MMR is that you have poor communication skills or no communication at all with your team. Communicating in Dota is a really complex topic, and I'm actually going to make a series of videos on how to communicate in each of the different roles in the game, and effective communication can change depending on the game. But the most important thing is that if you're not communicating at all, it's really hard to be your teammate, and it's really hard to work with you towards winning the game. So just try it out, whether it's with voice or chat wheel or pinging out items or the Roche timer, or even just typing a couple words with text just to let your teammates know what you're thinking, what you're doing, what items you're going to buy so that they can plan accordingly. And if you find yourself on the other end of the spectrum where you're talking too much and criticizing your teammates and making it hard to actually do anything as a team, then put a little effort on refocusing on the game and your mechanics and what you need to be doing to win, as opposed to letting your teammates know every little thing that you're thinking about them or their play. Like I said, communication is an incredibly complex topic, and I will be coming out with a series of videos that will go much more deeply into the specifics of what effective communication is in a game of Dota. And that wraps up our 7 reasons that you're stuck at your current MMR. I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that you were able to take a few little nuggets of knowledge and apply them to your own games to get out of the rut that you might be in at your current MMR and boost yourself up a couple hundred matchmaking points and get yourself to that next tier. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Good luck and have fun.